Welcome to the station crew. Enjoy your stay.
In Space Station 14, combat is a regular part of the game, and for some jobs, it's a major part of the game. In order to do combat, you probably need to turn on harm mode. So, without turning on harm mode, you will have your more or less normal interactions. So, like if I left click on like a can of soda or something, or really any interactable in the world, I will end up picking it up or interacting with it. So, like if I click on a chair, I'll sit on it. So, if you really want to do any form of damage, most forms of combat involve turning on harm mode. To turn on harm mode, you just press 1, and you'll know you're on harm mode when in the top left it turns red, and you'll see a pop-up on your character saying combat mode enabled. I can still pick up things like food and stuff. I could pick up something like a weapon, which, I mean, I know this is a fork, but still consider a weapon. But if I click on an interactable, like a chair, if I click on something like a door, I'll end up hitting it. Reason for that is because I'm in harm mode. If I turn off harm mode, I'll open the door. I'll sit on the chair. That's really the only keybind you must know in order to do damage. You have harm on to hit something, have harm off if you don't want to hit something. It's pretty simple. If you left click somebody with just an empty item in your hand with nothing, you'll punch them. Depending on your species, you'll do a different amount of damage. However, if you right click something, you'll end up doing a disarm chance. If you succeed that disarm chance, you'll knock the weapon out of their hand. If you continue to disarm somebody with no weapon in their hand, you will do stamina damage to them if you're successful. If you do enough stamina damage to someone, you'll knock them to the floor. There's a lot of RNG involving with disarming, but it is a weapon and option that you have even before you get a weapon or other options. In Space Station 14, there are 3 categories of weapons, at least vaguely. You have your projectile weapons, or slash guns, you have your melee weapons, and you have your throwables, of some of which are melee weapons that can be thrown and used as a melee weapon. We're going to just focus on melee weapons right now. There are a few categories of melee weapons. There are melee weapons that are rather simple. You pick them up, you turn on harm mode, and you swing them, and that's all you can use them for. In normal combat mode, with a weapon, left-clicking will attack your direct target that you click on, right-clicking will wide swing and hit any target that your weapon passes through. Then there are slightly more complicated melee weapons. There are melee weapons that require being wielded to get maximum damage. You can always shift-click any single item in the game to examine its damage values. Baseball bats do 10 blunt. However, weapons like baseball bats, spears, mops can all be wielded. To wield a weapon, you pick it up in your hand and you press Z. This will wield the weapon. Wielded weapons take up both hands, but normally increase their melee damage. Otherwise, though, nothing really changes. It's just a melee weapon that uses both of your hands for increased stats. Then there are melee weapons that require activation to turn on or to just function more properly. Of the more common ones, there's the energy sword. Energy sword, without being turned on, is just a really crappy handle that you hit people with. You press Z, you'll pop out the energy sword, and the damage will obviously be increased massively. Then you have stun batons, which are unique. There's also stun prods. These are charged melee weapons, meaning that they actually have 2 modes. If you don't turn on the stun baton, it's just a stick that does some decent damage. However, the stun baton, like energy swords, if you press E with it in your hand, will turn it on. This will make it so it does no damage, but instead does stamina damage. You can tell that you're doing stamina damage to someone when you hit them and you hear that sound and they turn blue. But if you hit them and they turn red, that means you're actually hurting them. Blue is for stamina damage, red is for normal damage. You can always examine the charge that is left in a stun baton by shift-clicking it and see how many hits you have left. You can recharge stun batons and laser weapons in something called a recharger. They would be mapped in security, certain other departments have them. Science and cargo can always make these for you. Some melee weapons can be thrown to do throwing damage, and some weapons are actually better as throwing weapons. There are 2 types of throwing weapons. There are weapons that will embed and weapons that will pierce. Weapons like spears and knives, when you throw them, will embed in their target. For example, a normal spear when thrown will do 15 pierce. If you hit an enemy with the spear, it will do that damage and be stuck in them. In order to use a throwing weapon, you just have to have it in your hand, and by default, you'll press Control Q to throw it. Control Q is a default throwing bind. I would probably recommend rebinding it. Throwing is fairly common and fairly useful in this game. Some items when thrown actually have different interactions than their tooltips will describe. Throwing a stun baton will do stamina damage as if you melee them with it. Throwing a bola will wrap around a target's leg, do stamina damage, and slow them until they take the bola off. Weapons that don't embed will do damage through the targets they pass through. So if I throw this cap at this target, it is a solid target, so we'll hit it and pass through. If I throw it at a non-solid target, aka a player, it will hit them and keep flying through. Just like turning on a stun baton, throwing a grenade without turning it on does nothing. So this is a flashbang. If I want to activate the flashbang, you have to pick it up, press Z to activate it. You'll hear it start beeping, and then you press Control Q to throw it. There are two fire modes available to guns. They are either semi-automatic, something like a Kamerer, a MK58, or all semi-automatic. And then there's automatic weapons, the WT-550, C-20, and L6 SAW, all are examples of automatic weapons. Guns in this game also feature a bolt system, meaning that if the bolt is not down when you have a magazine in and no bullet in the chamber, you cannot fire. Obviously, guns that are pump action or laser weaponry don't really feature a bolt system, but some guns, like the WT-550, despite looking like a normal submachine gun other than a fancy blinking green light, don't feature a bolt, meaning that the gun's always just ready to fire. Guns that are not ready to fire, sometimes the sprites are really obvious. For example, the slide on the pistol will be racked back, meaning that it's not ready to fire. The L6 SAW will have its cover up on the magazine, but guns like the C-20, when they're not bolted, it's a very small sprite, and it can be really difficult to see whether or not it actually bolted, especially if you already have it in your hand. In order to fire a gun, you need to pick it up in your hand and turn on harm mode. You see the red caution sign or the red error sign, that means your gun is not ready to fire. If you left click, it'll tell you what's wrong. So this one says gun is not bolted. There are a few ways to bolt a gun. You can right click a gun, hover over it, and close the bolt. More effectively though, you can hover over any gun and press E to bolt it. So we rack the slide, now we pick it up, and then now in harm mode, if you are ready to fire, there will not be a caution symbol. So this is a semi-automatic gun, meaning I have to left click every single time I want to shoot. You can see the fire rate of a gun by shift clicking it. So this gun can shoot 5 times a second. That means if I can click 5 times a second, it'll shoot 5 times a second. When your gun has run out of ammo, you'll hear a click sound, and when I try to left click, it will still say gun not bolted, which is true because there's no ammo left to even get in the chamber. In order to reload a gun, you have a few methods. You can alt click the gun, whether it's on the floor or in your hand. You can alt click to remove the magazine. You can even reload in your backpack. I can alt click it in my backpack and then left click the mag. You can press Q to drop the mag. You can press Control Q to throw the mag. You can left click the mag on a table. However you want to drop it, you can do so. So in order to reload though, you have to take the magazine in your active hand, click on the gun, then you have to hover over your gun, press E, and that will put a bullet in the chamber. That is how you reload with magazine-based guns. Guns like shotguns actually require wielding to shoot. If I try to shoot the camera with one hand, the camera must be wielded. So like in the melee part of this video, you press Z to wield the gun. It will play a fake cycled sound, but trust me, you're not wasting ammo, and you can't really waste ammo on the camera because there's no bolt system, so you just either are shooting or you aren't shooting. So, with the camera, when you have two hands on it, you can just left click to fire like normal. Once the gun is out, you won't get a caution symbol because there is no bolt system. You'll just click. You have no ammo. In order to reload a camera, you can either do it per individual shell, and yes, you can even put individual shells in it. Or you can get something like a cartridge dispenser, which you can just take the cartridge dispenser in your hand and left click the gun, and it'll keep putting ammo into the gun until it is full. And then you just left click the fire, just like before. Some guns also have unique interactions. Bigger guns, if you have body armor on, for example, you can put guns on your suit slot, which will make it physically show up on your back. Here you can also use that, you can also reload guns on your back even, you just alt-click it, left-click the magazine on it. If you take a fresh mag, have it in your hand, for example, and just left-click on your current gun, you'll just automatically swap the mags as well, so you don't always have to empty the magazine first, you can swap them. Submachine guns in general, and even the light machine gun, can be shot one-handed or two-handed. However, accuracy is absolutely terrible with one hand, so I'll just stand over here, bolt my gun, shoot a few shots. You'll see I literally hit all 3 targets despite aiming at the middle target. You press Z, you can actually wield the gun. You press Z to wield the gun. Check the accuracy now. Much better. I only hit the target I intended to shoot. The C-20 is a very unique gun where if you empty the magazine, it will actually automatically eject the mag out of the gun. So you could at this point then press Z to unwield the gun. However, if you swap your hands by pressing X with a wielded weapon, it will automatically unwield the weapon. So this can make for really convenient reloads. So now that we know pressing X unwields the gun, even without leaving harm mode, we can just keep harm mode on, and we can have our replacement magazine as the next in-line object in our backpack. Shift B will automatically take the gold starred item, which is the most recent object in your backpack, and put it in your hand. If I press X, it will unwield the gun. I could pull the magazine out, left click my gun with the new magazine, press X to swap back to my gun, press Z to wield it. So sometimes you literally have to rebolt the gun twice, but you can always just keep your mouse here. I might actually even recommend that you just press E twice when you're hovering over your gun in order to shoot it quicker. But as long as you don't have the caution symbol, you're ready to fire, and you can save a lot of time reloading like this. Again, you can always reload guns in your backpack like so, pull them out, good to go. And finally, we have battery-based weapons. Most of these weapons feature an internal battery. Weapons like the advanced laser pistol and the antique laser pistol actually feature recharging power cells, and that means they do not need to actually be put in a recharger, they'll recharge automatically. All laser weapons are hit scanned, and then you have weapons like the Disabler and Disabler SMG, which are not hit scanned. These still feature batteries, but they shoot projectiles that don't shoot through windows. They are not hit scanned, so they must actually physically land. Every other weapon, though, that is described as a laser is hit scan. That means it will instantly hit the target. Weapons like the laser rifle actually still do need to be wielded to have proper accuracy. Laser weapons that are hit scan can shoot through glass. That also includes things like glass airlocks, making them very versatile in hallways. These weapons all need to be recharged in a recharger, except for the Svalin laser pistol, which is a science tech item. It cannot be wielded. Inside this, though, actually features a pop-out battery, which you need to recharge these power cells at a cell recharger. There are higher capacity power cells than just a small one, but this features all the unique laser-type weapons. So you have Svalin, which has a pop-out battery, Disablers, which are the same as all the other laser weapons, but are projectile instead of hit scan, and then you have your just hit scan lasers of the ones that need recharging. You put in a recharger. Weapons like the antique laser pistol will charge on their own. Don't need wielding. Laser pistol also doesn't need wielding. So generally, if something's described as a pistol, it does not need wielded. If it's described as a rifle or carbine or something, it needs wielded to be accurate. I think that really explains the basic combat mechanics in the game. It really explains the hotkeys and keybinds behind how to do the quicker combat actions. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and feel free to add on any information if you have more to provide as well. Thank you for watching.